made it. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a recorded episode of RickCast, episode 148. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. Congratulations, you made it to the weekend. Hopefully, it'll be a good, fun weekend for you. I am not going to be live tonight because I have some training that somebody signed up for some LCC training, some firearms training tonight, and the only time they could do it is between 4 and 6 on Friday. So I am out. While you're watching this, I am in the midst of helping somebody. They will pass. They didn't pass their LTC before, and they were wise enough and smart enough to sign up for training, which we are doing. And as of this recording being dropped, they are probably holding up. Not probably. They will be holding up an LTC post shooting target that shows that they have passed. So I always like when people are smart enough to actually not let their pride get in the way. But anyway, this will be a problem. I always say a quick show, and they always end up being like 45 minutes. But what are we going to talk about? So Pam Bondi versus everybody. And you can kind of get this sense that Pam really did, for lack of a better term, screw the pooch on this one with the whole Epstein just flapping her gums about, oh, my dad, I'm reading the files, and the files gonna come out. And everybody else went, you got to be freaking kidding me. Why did you say anything? We talked about putting the files out. And it's like, yeah, not yet. And that's why Cash and Dan, and if you've watched your show, I've been hard on both of them. It doesn't excuse their behavior. But the whole thing has reeked of a recovery operation since she opened her mouth. And I don't think they're very happy with her, and I wouldn't be happy either, because what you doing? Why you talking so much? And we're gonna take a look at this. I'm going to talk about that when we get into the actual story. Violence at raids in California, ICE raiding farms. I know I went back and forth with Steve Cunningham, good old Steve, from Census Fame on our show News from the Pew last night. I'm going to expound on that a little bit more and hopefully not contradict myself. If I do contradict myself, let me know in the comment section down below so I can at least clarify it better in that regard. And then we'll do the box office reports. Looks like Superman is doing pretty well. 22.5 million, I think it made on previews on Thursday night. Probably will head to somewhere. I didn't even look at the previews at 175. Depending on how strong the word of mouth is, could do really well on that. And then we'll talk about the figure it needs to potentially hit to break even. People are bandying the numbers around because there's no official budget. And even if there was, the budget would be lied on anyway. And that's going to be the show today. So do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we are doing here on the show. And it's greatly appreciated. Your help, your contributions. You make the show work. And if you can, go over to RickCast Reviews. Check out the review I did on Superman. It dropped yesterday. It's still there. And I think you might like it. My reviews are not too intense. Some people have gone really intense on these Superman reviews. And I get it. If Superman's your guy, and I've been like this every time there's been a Punisher adaptation, because Punisher and Daredevil, those are my guys. Those are my guys when it comes to, like, when I was reading them growing up or had impacts on me growing up. Daredevil and Punisher, they were my dudes. I'll even be this honest. I wrote a terrible unofficial screenplay for when I was like 21, 22, back when I thought I could write screenplays. I wrote a screenplay for a movie called The Punisher Returns, which essentially had Frank Castle's illegitimate son take the mantle. It was kind of like pretty much all the reboots, requels. I was just ahead of my time. By the way, I had a couple people read it, and they were charitable friends of mine, and they went, this is kind of crap. So, the Punisher was my dude, and every interpretation of the Punisher I've liked, but I've had hard critiques on all of them, and that includes John Bernthal's Punisher. I know I'm going off here. I'll get into the stories in a second. I like John Bernthal. I actually really like John Bernthal as an actor. I think he's pretty solid in everything he's in. He's very respectful to the source material when it comes to the Punisher. His gunplay is always top notch. The way he works with firearms and the way he respects them. So I just don't like his constant yelling as Frank Castle. It's the Frank Castle in the comic books is a cold, calculated, just straight up killer. And I understand where John Bernthal's coming from, where it's just like rage that powers him. So when he gets into it, it's just rage that goes in there. And I completely get it, and I respect it, and I think it's a good interpretation of it. I would just wish there was a little bit more cold, calculated versions of him. The first like 10 minutes of the Punisher season 1 with him in it is pretty much how it should be the entire time. Anyway, I don't want this to be a thing on that. Let me get into the first story. I got a warm-up story for you, ladies and gentlemen, here on RickCast. See, you can talk about all this kind of stuff all day. But that's my interpretation of it. Let's get into our first story, ladies and gentlemen. This is a warm-up story, and this is just bad timing. The White House, the White House X posts, which have been pretty spot on. They've been pretty good for the most part. This one is just bad. This one is just bad. I mean, this is cringe. This is awful. I will show the one down here. I won't say anything. Time to deport Hawk Girl. This one's kind of funny. I'm not going to say it, but it's kind of how I feel more and more about the Trump presidency. Then you have this one right here where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't have put out the Trump one when you've got major conflict going on inside and you have major parts of your base just kind of falling away at this point where it's like, yikes. Like really big yikes. Like really, really big yikes. So yeah, you're seeing this float around. Bad move on the comms team. Should have just let it go. It also is really just back to we must worship Trump, and Trump is perfect, and Trump can do no wrong. And that's not fair to Trump because he's a dude, and dudes make mistakes, and dudes are not perfect. And, they struggle and so forth. So yeah, that's our first story, our first warm-up back, our only warm-up back that we're going to really have tonight on the show, simply because it's not really needed anywhere else. Got to just focus that camera in a little bit. All right, let's get to our first story of the day, of the night, whenever you're watching this here on RickCast. So this is the story that is dominating the day. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, and it was a report yesterday that the DOJ is still looking at the files. They're still looking at the files, the Jeffrey Epstein files. It makes me feel like the scene from Zoolander where Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are just smacking the computer like the files are in the computer. That's what I feel the Trump administration wants us to look. The files are in the computer and we're trying to figure out how to get them. And it's just really kind of bad. And this all stems from Pam Bondi and her famous quote, we've got the files on my desk. Everybody's saying, I got the files on my desk and we're going to release them. And everybody else in the administration just went, you stupid blonde. What are you doing? What are you doing? We're not ready for this. And it's just been a cascade of bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, because this thing is like slipping on a banana peel and you're trying to reach around and grab for something and you're trying to grab for this and you're going back and you're going forth. That's what it feels like. It feels like a comically bad cartoon where Pam Bondi is slipped on the banana peel and everybody else is trying to catch up, or the administration's trying to catch up and grab at this and send cash on to Joe Rogan. That didn't work. Send Dan Bongino out to X to do that. That's not working. Have Trump scold everybody for why that's not working. And at one mistake after another mistake, and it's starting to hit Trump's numbers, and I bet you Trump's not very happy about that. So they dropped that story yesterday. The DOJ, they allowed Judicial Watch to find it, essentially saying, "Oh no, we're still looking. No, we're still looking. The memo that you got earlier in the week was unsigned and undated, so we're still looking as of it right now." And apparently, tight shirt Dan Bongino is not having a good time with Long Bunny Bondi, and they are clashing. Now, of course, I made the prediction on X. You can follow me at Stratcath, which you will see down here, that I have a feeling that Pam is going to be out soon. And a lot of you will say, Rick, she covers Trump's back. She's there to protect him from the deep state. Sessions didn't do it. He needs somebody loyal to him, blah, blah, blah. Understood. I get it. But at the same time, when you start making catastrophic mistakes that are hurting poll numbers, somebody's got to fall on the sword. Now, there are reports that Dan Bongino is considering leaving the administration. And of course, I hate to give this woman credit because she is psychotic in every sense of the word. And she is, the name says it all. It's Laura Loomer, who is, despite her lack and her undying love and affection of President Trump, that she does have information. So let's bring this up. And she's the one breaking this story. Axios actually didn't give her credit because Axios is terrible. But 4 hours ago, she said FBI Director Cash and Dan Bongino are livid at Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Sources, and I do believe she does have sources in there, tell her that Bongino is taking the day off from his job as deputy director, and now there's speculation on whether or not he will return to his job at the FBI over his discuss with, she calls her Blondie, Long Bunny Bondi, I did it first, Pam Bondi's lack of transparency and handling. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, Vance, Bongino, and Cash. She also lied to the American people. Say whatever you will about Laura. I think she's kind of off her wagon. She's right here. She's right. FBI, Cash, and Bongino are furious with the blowback. I think the clash is happening because Bongino and Cash, and I don't know them. I don't really, if you've watched the show, I'm not a huge Bongino fan, but there's a fundamental difference on how men and women work. Okay. Pam Bondi she likes going on Fox News. I think she loved the validation in the moment of saying, I have the files and the files are on my desk. And she loved that endorphin rush. A man would say, the same question, and the man would have said, listen, we're going through it. The American people is important to them. We were elected to get after this issue. We're going to get it when we are ready to take this fight to the people that caused it. Any kind of answer like that, and people would have been like, hey man, where are they? But you lose your credibility. I don't have Cash, and Bongino don't have a lot of credibility with me, but within the right-wing Twitter sphere, podcast sphere, they had credibility, and Pam Long Bunny Bondi burned it all with that, and then the binder thing and everything else. So now Loomer reported about an hour ago at the time of this filming that Bongino is thinking about resigning from the FBI as deputy director over Long Bunny Bondi's mishandling. So sources are telling her it's very likely Bongino resigns from the FBI unless Pam is fired by President Trump or resigns from the DOJ. Here's the thing. Here is the thing. No, of course, not going to go back to that. If they fire her, or if she falls on the sword, I don't think it happens immediately. I think a deal needs to be struck for all parties involved. Now this is very interesting. I'm going to throw this out there, and I'll talk about Pam in a second. If Pam is fired, somebody in the administration, this is her with 1,000 grains of salt, that Ron DeSantis has been considered for the role of Attorney General. Notice at Alligator Alcatraz, Trump was very, very nice to Ron and all these other kinds of things. Ron would absolutely take the Attorney General spot in a heartbeat, because it would revive his political careers and aspirations for POTUS. And I don't know how you select the governor, but he could just that would clear the path for his wife right now, because that would allow them to do that. They also want to see Ken Paxton as AG, but he has U.S. Senate aspirations, and he also has some divorce issues that he has right now. However, the discussions have been taking place for several months about who could be Pam Bondi's replacement if she's ever fired or resigns. Nobody ever liked the idea of Pam as the actual Attorney General, right? It was first supposed to be Matt Gaetz, and then Matt Gaetz was pushed out, and then she was kind of like the runner-up. I've never liked her. I've had people from Florida tell me she's okay. Don't worry about it. She's pretty good. They're attorneys. That's not a bad thing. They know her from the attorney sphere. So I've tried to give a little bit of a wide berth on this, but I've never been a fan of hers because of her head charging on red flag laws. That was a big red flag to me. So let's play this out. Let's say that Trump says, listen, you got to go. You messed up and you're making us all look bad. And because she can't dig herself out of this, the longer she's there, and I know people are saying, well, she's loyal to Trump. I get it. But the longer she's there, it's like a sore. It's a sore that continues to just bubble up and just be there, causing pain. She can't do anything else without getting bombarded about the Epstein Files. That's the problem. She is a handicap to the rest of the administration. And I'm sure somebody that's closer to Trump is probably saying, you got to let her go. She messed this up. She's got to fall on the sword. You can bring in somebody else like Ron DeSantis. He'll fly through confirmation. And he's pretty solid as well. You know why Ron DeSantis will not stab Trump in the back if he was picked? Because he's like Marco Rubio. He's not stupid. He learned his lesson from the first time he listened to the Never Trumpers. He won't do it again. So he'll be on his best behavior, and he'll be absolutely, on his best pro-Trump slide. I think there's smoke here. I think there's going to be a fire soon enough. And I say that the way this works out is we're going to go through the month of July, and the preparations will be made in August. And I think she leaves mid-August. So that way there's a little bit of it gives her time to kind of figure out how to leave. Because if she leaves now, it's it's a blown call. The Trump administration has to take the loss, and it's going to be very public. August is also another time of the year. It's summer where, where other things are not, people aren't paying attention to politics. And so having her resign in the middle of August kind of gives her a little bit of dignity to kind of limp away. She'll find a job as a lobbyist somewhere. She was a lobbyist for Pfizer before. I'm sure they'll be happy to take her back. And then they can bring somebody else in. But this thing is cascading into a really, really bad look for everybody involved. And I just think eventually somebody is going to have to take the loss on this. With Dan saying, I'm going to leave, I'm going to get out of here. That's something that's kind of throwing the gauntlet down. I don't know how much sway he has, but the fact that he's doing it means somebody is getting fired or somebody is going to take the fall for this. We'll just see who it is. All right, folks, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing. On to the next story of the night, day, whatever time you're watching this. ICE raids on California cannabis farms erupt in clashes and mass detentions. Federal agents conducted immigration enforcement raids yesterday at Glass House Farms and cannabis business in the Camaro and Carpinteria. You know I'm stupid, so you know how to say it. I don't. California. The raids were part of a coordinated operation involving National Guard troops and military vehicles. Whatever, everything. Every law enforcement agency is militarized at this point, so it doesn't shock me. Amid increased immigration enforcement in Ventura County agricultural areas. Demonstrators gathered between fields facing federal agents, and they always have to say tactical here, just their regular stuff, who deployed smoke and tear gas canisters to disperse the crowds, while some protesters threw rocks and a gun was fired, which is very interesting. We'll take a look at that right now.
Report and take a look at this video right here. It appears a protester fired some kind of gun at federal agents. This happened this afternoon. It was a really chaotic scene at the time. A lot of smoke was being launched at the protesters. And again, it appears a protester fired back with that weapon. It looks like he fired at least a couple of times. We have not heard about any agents being hurt.
So the idea, let me get back here. The idea that, first of all, it was probably a Glock, because those things are everywhere. Secondly, the guys on Timcast were joking last night it was a high point, and that's why it jammed. It was probably a Glock, and he probably limp wristed it. That's why the thing it jammed. If you've ever shot a Glock, you know the grip angle's funny. If you try to one-hand it, it's different than using the 1913 pattern. And those are prone to stovepiping and other types of jams, which if you saw, he was able to rack the round out and get the thing back into service. You ain't getting a high point back into service if it jams. So all kidding aside, the fact that we're seeing violence escalate on the part of Antifa, on the part of pro-immigration pro-immigration groups, this is the issue. The more raids take place, and we've seen more violence against those enforcing it, Alvarado, then McAllen, and now this, there will be much more firepower used against, and I don't like saying this, used against immigration officials as the budget increases for ICE due to the big beautiful bill, as a result of the actual enforcement taking place, which I talked to Steve Cunningham about, and Steve's got some great points. This big fishnet is being dragged up, and citizens are being dragged up, and it's nerve-wracking for a lot of them. And I get that he finds the examples, and those do validate his points. At the same time, immigration must be enforced. The American people still are wanting immigration to be enforced. It is a matter of safety in that regard. I do agree with Steve in the fact that we could use the federalist solution, which is letting California secede and they can keep every legal immigrant they want. It doesn't bother me. I don't care if we lose LA. Right? People are hung up on New York and LA and the great American cities. We got to fix Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas here in Texas. I don't care about New York. We got to fix those here. We got to spend our time fixing those before we worry about what's happening up in the Northeast. But this is going to be something that escalates. We've talked about it on the show a lot. The fact that violence against those who are trying to pull the Band-Aid off of this flesh wound. It's just a really awful situation that is the result of 25 plus years of allowing unfettered immigration into these United States. It's a problem, and the executive has the authority to enforce it. As of right now, not a fan of the way it's being enforced, but I do agree that it needs to be enforced. But also understand with the enforcement, you're going to get this type of violence coming back at you. Congressman Sal, whoever this guy names, called the tactics military theater, and 10 people were detained, though no injuries were reported. 3 people were hospitalized for unknown reasons. The confrontation heightened fear among immigrant communities and raised concern about the impact of aggressive immigration enforcement. Listen, if you are here illegally and you are not leaving now when you know ICE is coming, it's going to be aggressive. You have broken the law. If I ever break the law, let's say my favorite hobby, speeding. It's not my favorite hobby, but I tend to find a way to get caught. If I resist in any way during a traffic stop, they can yank me out of the car and throw my head against the hood. So this idea of aggressive immigration enforcement, if you are pushing back against law enforcement, they have, like it or don't like it, this is just a fact, they have the authority in modern day USA to be aggressive with you in order to enforce the law. Doesn't matter if you're shoplifting or here as an illegal immigrant. The law is the law, right? Judge Dredd, I am the law. And so it's just, if you don't want to have ICE breakdown and drag you out, you can go home now. You can leave. Oh, well, I deserve to be here. No, you don't. You don't deserve to be here. And if you're here illegally, you're breaking the catechism of the Catholic Church. If you're gonna if you are going to try and hide behind that, that's not a thing. And you are breaking the laws of this union, which is a federal criminal code. It's only a misdemeanor. Like I said, so are traffic stops, but they can elevate if you resist and you do not comply. I don't make the rules here, man. That's just how things get enforced. So, not a shock to see that the presence and the supposed military theater ramping up now that ICE has the budget and the go ahead to go. But at the same time, this is a learned behavior in liberal areas, and so they are going to resist it with as much force as a little kid when you try to change their behavior after allowing it to fester and set in. And that's really what it is. It festered and set in, and so now it is what it is. All right, folks, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell every time to help the show grow. I appreciate everybody's help doing that. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I've been saying. Let's get to our last story of the night. All righty, ladies and gentlemen. So, it looks like the box office has Superman with 115 plus domestic debut. So the forecasting for the 3 movies coming out, or the 3 movies at the box office this weekend, looks like Superman makes somewhere between 115 and 135. Everybody's hoping that it comes in at this 135 number because that would be a lot better than 115. 115 is good. It's obviously 100 plus million. It's more than Jurassic World made in 3 days. So there's an improvement on that. But at the same time, the pressure that is riding on this movie, it needs to do well financially to kind of justify the hype. Once again, you can check out my review at RickCast Reviews. The movie's good, in my opinion. Is it very good? No, but it's not bad. It's an enjoyable popcorn flick. So, it's been tracking wildly down during the home stretch, with some forecasters saying it was going to do 90 to, as low as 90 or as high as 150. Awareness is sky high for the Warner Brothers marketing blitz, and they expect to debut somewhere between 115, using the Man of Steel's 116 bow as a baseline. Reviewers are paying the kindness of Superman forward with terrific reviews, and word of mouth will likely influence where this film lands on opening weekend. Seems like word of mouth is actually doing pretty good if we can check Metacritic, because I know it goes back to Snow White every time. It had a 70 based off of critic reviews. It has a 68. It's gone down a little bit, but it has a generally favorable score. User rating is actually higher than the critic rating, and that's the number that everybody sees. What is it? is it movie review? No. Cinema Score. Cinema Score. Let's see if they have a Cinema Score debuting for Man of Steel. I'm sorry, for Superman at this point. No, they only have it for Jurassic World, which is a B, and that's terrible. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Right. 166 would be, that's the best. That was Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice, but that thing cratered in the second week. Superman of Steel did 116, but then again, that 116 is 2013 money, as we've done on this show. Let's see if we can get the inflation calculator going here on that, because 116 million is not 116 million today. This is not going to be a fair comparison, but I might as well do it. You have what? 20? No, come on, man. I hate it when it does that, when you try to like delete something. So let's see. 116 000 000. Give it away. That's 160. Ironically enough, that's closer to Batman and Superman numbers in today's money. It'd be 160 million. So it's not going to do 160 million. That's why I'm saying if this movie does closer to the 135, that's decent numbers for it. Justice League did 98. Superman Returns did 50 million. What was that, 2006? Come on. You can't do that. I don't like how I don't like how Box Office Pro does not take into account. They just give you the straight numbers without the inflation, and the inflation is huge. That's 82 million in today's dollars. So if it does better, if it does even 115, it's better than Superman Returns, even adjusted for inflation. So I'm going to come out on here. I'm going to say 130. RickCast Reviews is going to go with a 130 on the Superman preview. I hope I'm wrong. I'd like to see it hit 150. I think it's a good movie. It's a positive movie. It's a fun movie. I think it deserves as much money as it can get. No hate for James. Let me just say this now. And I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I'm never going to get invited on their streams or their shows or any of these other kinds of things. I really think, like the Geeks and Gamer Squads and all those guys, they're hating it because of James Gunn. They're finding ways and reasons to hate the film. And I don't think it's deserved. Is it perfect? No. Gary from Neurotic, I give a pass to, because Gary this is his dude. And he's been waiting for something like this, and his nitpicks are legit. There's some I'm not a huge Superman comic guy, so the lore changes don't affect me as much as somebody like him. But the guys who are coming after it for stupid reasons, they're really cherry picking parts of the plot. And I really think the conservative space, the movie, the YouTube space dominated by Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and those guys. And I'm not putting those two in there. Everybody's kind of waiting for Critical Drinker's review. I'm not putting those two there, but some of the unders are just kind of coming after it because they don't like James Gunn. And they're just trying to just say, oh, well, it's so bad here and there. Come on, man. Be real. All right, second one, Jurassic World Rebirth. What would that be? Came in at night. All right, so 45 million second weekend. I don't think it actually does this. I actually think it comes below. I think it does 30 million. I think it drops significantly. So I don't think a B cinema score is not 30, is not a solid hold like this. I actually think the thing drops dramatically, because it's, you can't even say the kids angle, because Superman is aimed at families. There were a good amount of kids in the screening I was at Thursday afternoon. Kids are going to want to go see Superman. The dinos are done. The dinosaurs are done, and it's not even strong enough to hold it. I really don't think so. I think this is being generous. I'm going to come in at 30, which would be what? It was a $90 million and then 30. So whatever. Do percentages in your head. Drop it in the comment section below, because I'm stupid. And then finally, F1. I think F1 sits at the $14 million one, which would be great. Because, if it does that, 14 million, that'll put it almost to 130. And 130, and that would be really excellent. I think it's going to have the legs into the end of the month, where I think this movie it's at 112 right now, probably clears 150 domestically. I actually think it has the legs for 150 domestically. I think Apple keeps it, in there. I think Apple and Warner Brothers want to keep it in there just a little bit longer to kind of hit that 150. It'll, 150, 350 range globally. Does it make 600 million or even 500 million? Probably not. But it could. We'll see how it goes. As far as this movie is the one that will have the legs that everybody hopes it does. So 130, I think it's 130. I think I'm going to give him the 135 on that. I'm going to say 30 million for Jurassic World Rebirth. And then I'm going to say 14 million for F1 the movie. Then we'll see if those actually work out going forward. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this Friday. Oh, man, I got to stop drinking the Dr. Peppers. They're delicious, but they make me burp. All right. Sorry, that's it for Friday's episode of RickCast. This is the 11th of July, 2025. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. I will talk to you all on Monday. The show will be live again. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.